Hi everyone, Pierre from Into Fly Fishing, and welcome to our first installment of our Stillwater series, where we'll be looking at the basic Stillwater setup to get you going. Now obviously there are a ton of variations for each component, each with their own specialized application, but in this video we'll be looking at the basic setup just so that you can get started. Before we get started, I would like to encourage you to leave any questions you might have at the bottom of the video. I've been fishing for many years and take some things as a given, so I would love to elaborate more in future videos on any of your questions. Let's first take a look at what Stillwater fly fishing is. In essence, and as the name suggests, it is fishing in dams or lakes where there's little to no current flow. However, it is slightly more complicated than that. Just like fishing in a river, it's important that you understand where fish will be holding, to use the correct flies, and fish them at the correct depth. Another important factor in stillwater fishing is using the wind to your advantage. Here in South Africa, the most popular stillwater species to target is undoubtedly the rainbow trout. So in this video, we'll focus mainly on them. The foundation of every good fly fishing setup is the rod, and in my opinion, the best rods are a 5 or a 6 weight, or in some cases, even a 7 weight. The weight of rod you'll choose will be determined by the size of fish you'll generally be fishing for, the weight and size of the flies or combination of flies that you'll be using, and the one that everybody forgets is how windy it is in the place that you'll be fishing. If you need one rod weight to cover all applications, the 6 weight is the way to go. As far as length goes, the two most popular options are the 9 and the 10 foot. A 10 foot being the more ideal option in my opinion. This extra foot just gives you that little bit more reach so that you don't hook your boat partner, and in general a 10 foot rod has a slightly beefier butt section which helps you to tame larger fish quicker. But having said that, by no means is a 9 foot rod a poor option. As you can see, I'm fishing a Moonshine Vesper 9 foot 6 weight, and it absolutely excels at stillwater fishing. Now there are a ton of variables and other features that might influence your ultimate rod choice, but in my opinion the rod weight and length is the most important factor for stillwater fishing. Things like whether the rod has a specific finish, if it has a fighting butt, action of the rod, those kind of things are more personal preference. As far as a stillwater reel goes, the two most important factors to consider is line capacity and the smoothness of the drag. You'll generally be making longer casts when compared to river fishing, which means that a lot of times when you hook into a fish, you're about midway to the end of your fly line. Make sure you select a reel that has at least 80 yards of backing capacity and test it with a specific line you're using, especially if you're using a floating line. Probably the most important consideration of a good stillwater reel is the smoothness of the drag. Now obviously when you use 2x tippet and you hook into a 1 pound stocky, that won't be an issue. But sometimes, especially when the fishing is slow, it is necessary to drop your tippet size down to 5x. If you then hook into a decent fish, you'll need the smoothest drag you can get. It will help you land a lot more fish, and there will be less fish swimming around with piercings in their jaw. Now let's look at the backing and the fly lines you need to select for a good stillwater setup. As mentioned earlier, a good stillwater reel has to have a backing capacity of at least 80 yards. Make sure to test this with the fly line that you're intending to use, as not all fly lines of a specific weight have the same diameter. For instance, a 6 weight floating fly line has a much thicker head than a Di5 sinking fly line. As far as fly lines go, this is where stillwater fly fishing can become really complicated. If you're fishing a dam or a lake not more than 10 feet deep, you'll probably get away just having a floating or an intermediate fly line. The dam that you're seeing us fish in the video is almost 90 feet deep at some places, so you really need to have a fast sinking line if the fish are holding deep. To keep things as simple as possible for a starter stillwater setup, I recommend having 3 fly lines. A floating fly line, which floats on the surface of the water, an intermediate fly line, which sinks around 1.5 inches per second, and a Di5 sinking line, which sinks around 5 inches per second. If you'd like more information on the topic of fly line selection and the best stillwater fly lines, let us know in the comments down below. To the front of the fly line you attach a monofilament or a fluorocarbon leader. Now, if you don't build your own leaders or don't fish level leaders like I do, I recommend starting with a 9 foot tapered leader. I recommend a 2x or a 3x tapered leader, and to the end of it attach a tippet ring. From this tippet ring we'll attach all our sections of tippet as we fish to prolong the leader's life. Another topic that usually opens a heated debate is which tippet to use. In Stillwater fly fishing, this is certainly the case. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of which brand is better. It's always a good idea to have a couple of different diameters and materials of tippet with you, so I recommend a full range of 2x to 5x in standard monofilament and 4x and 5x fluorocarbon for the slower days. As far as fly selection goes, we're planning on doing a full video on the 10 best Stillwater flies, so I don't want to give away too much of that info in this video. But what I want to talk about is the hooks used on your Stillwater flies. If you tie your own flies, ensure that the hooks are the best quality you can afford. If you buy flies from a shop, ask them specifically which hooks the flies are tied on. I would stay clear from flies tied ultra cheap in the East, as these hooks tend to break. The flies also look like crap. If the shop can tell you exactly which hooks are used, there's a good chance it'll be of good quality. Remember, the fly hook is the primary connection between yourself and the fish. Don't skimp on this. And that's it. With this basic setup, you can go out and do some serious damage from the banks of your local Stillwater. Once again, if there are any topics or questions that you want us to discuss in future videos, let us know in the comment section down below. If this is the first time that you're viewing one of our videos, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notifications, then we can let you know as soon as we release any future tutorials or reviews. Until next time, cheers.